What's up, guys, and welcome to the QuickDisTakes Podcast, Episode 7. I am your host, Tim LeBeau. We got a lot to talk about today, a lot of things released by Disney last week, a lot of information to go over, so let's waste no time and get right to it. So this week, Disney released the details to their Disney Plus streaming service, and there are a lot of things going on here. First, we learned that it's going to launch on November 12th, 2019, and that the service is going to cost $6.99 per month. It'll be available to stream through smart TVs, web browsers, mobile devices, consoles, all the regular run-of-the-mill streaming stuff. The service will launch on November 12th, 2019, and cost $6.99 a month, or if you so choose, you can pay $69.99 up front. So I guess the question is, what do you get with this streaming service? And the answer to that is quite a bit. So at launch, Disney Plus will feature 9 exclusive episodic shows, and apparently much more on the way. We have the list here with Loki, which is going to be a new Marvel Cinematic Universe TV show starring Tom Hiddleston. We're also going to get a live-action Star Wars series starring Diego Luna as Cassian Andor and Alan Tudyk as the voice of K2SO, which is their characters from the Rogue One movie. Disney's also confirmed Monsters at Work, a new show based on Monsters, Inc. A High School Musical series is apparently underway in development as well. Jeremy Renner will be reprising the role of Hawkeye in a limited-run TV show based on his character. An adaptation of Marvel's What If comic book series, which presents our favorite heroes and villains in alternate realities, where different scenarios have played out. The first episode, according to Kevin Feige, will center around the world where Peggy Carter, not Steve Rogers, became Captain America. And we're also going to get WandaVision, a new TV series starring Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, reprising their roles from the Marvel movies. We'll be getting a Mandalorian series from veteran director and actor Jon Favreau. The show will be set between the events of The Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and will follow the travails of a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy. At the Disney Investor Day event, Favreau noted that the show's first season is slated to go on 8 episodes. Just want to stop right here for a moment, because you see where this is all kind of going. You're going to get a lot of things on Marvel, a lot of things on Star Wars, and I just wonder, I love Star Wars, not a big Marvel guy, if there's going to be just how much of this content are we going to be able to take on before we start maybe to get a little sick of it? I mean, I know Star Wars has a really large extended universe, and people love it. There's going to be, we've already got right at launch an announcement of 2 shows. I believe they're bringing the Clone Wars back as well. So I don't know how many different spin-offs or adaptations we're going to get of different Star Wars storylines, but apparently if Star Wars or Marvel is your thing, this service is definitely going to be something you're going to want to check out. Anyway, The Mandalorian will star Pedro Pascal as a gunfighter living on the outer reaches of the galaxy. Breaking Bad's Giancarlo Esposito will join Pascal along with Carl Weathers, and the most shocking names on the list, famed director Werner Herzog and the deranged Nick Nolte. Also interesting to note, they got a Mighty Ducks show under consideration. That's, I can't imagine where they would be going with that, but that would definitely be a welcome addition. I'd like to check that out. So according to The Hollywood Reporter, the Disney service is going to start with around 500 films from the Disney library and around 7,000 episodes of various things from, I believe, the Disney Channel. The launch, they'll be offering 13 Signature Collection films, which are all the ones that are considered to be in the quote-unquote Disney vault. You're going to get 101 Dalmatians, Aladdin, Bambi, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, Jungle Book, Lady and the Tramp, Lion King, Little Mermaid, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White. They're also going to have 18 Pixar films available at launch as well. That'll be along the likes of A Bug's Life, Brave, Cars, looks like Cars 2, Cars 3, Monsters, Inc., Monsters University, Ratatouille, Toy Story, The Incredibles 2, Coco, Finding Dory, Finding Nemo, The Good Dinosaur, The Original Incredibles, Inside Out, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, looks like even Toy Story 4, Up, and WALL-E. So obviously, we kind of get the gist here. There is going to be a lot of content on this service. Also heard we might be getting a live-action Sword in the Stone, and there's going to be a live-action Lady and the Tramp, and some type of variation of Three Men and a Baby. So there's going to be all kinds of different things thrown at us on this service, and probably much like Netflix, they'll throw things at the wall and see what sticks. So as a Disney fan, or just a fan of film in general, you're going to get a lot of exciting content, and I think a lot of people are going to subscribe to this. It's going to be very difficult to resist picking up the subscription to this service. And I think Disney, obviously they know that between the Marvel and the Star Wars alone, never mind their classic content, the subscribers are going to be there. And this was, kind of a no-brainer in hindsight. I remember when it was announced, people were kind of like, well, what are they going to do? How are they going to jump into this market that Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime had already established? And I think the answer is quite simple now. First of all, over the past 10 years or so, they've acquired so much, so there's that alone. And with Star Wars and Marvel being under the umbrella now, just those two properties, you could probably have a streaming service, honestly, but just those two intellectual properties alone, never mind all the classic cartoons that people want to see and people just can't get enough of. So this is going to be probably right out of the gate a big subscription base, and the traffic is probably going to be heavy right out of the gate because I think people are going to be really excited for this. And that's great. It's always welcome to have more availability to be able to grab content and get to see things that you want to see, especially at the price of $6.99 a month, or even a $69.99 up front. Obviously that'll probably change as people get more into the service and they get more subscribers. They're going to probably bump it up slowly but surely, as every subscription service pretty much has. But for now, at least probably in the first year or two, you're going to get that $6.99 price point, and even if it moves up slowly, even if it's $12.99, $13.99, in that range, this will probably be well worth the subscription, especially for hardcore Disney fans, and even kind of the moderate Disney fan is going to probably enjoy this service. And like anything else Disney's done over the last decade or so, it's going to be a gold mine. So really curious and interested to see how people react to this and how many people subscribe and how good the actual content is. Obviously, we know the old content's going to be, but what the new shows are going to bring and how much interest it's going to spark. I think a lot of them obviously going to spark a lot of interest up front, but will the shows be good and watchable, and will people cling to them and follow them loyally? So that's definitely some exciting news, and we'll keep an eye out on how all that plays out. But the Disney Plus service is obviously going to be a great moneymaker for Disney and probably exciting for all us fans. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about on today's show was the episode 9 teaser trailer that dropped this past Friday. We open up with Rey on either Jakku or Tatooine or another desert planet that might exist in this galaxy, I'm not sure. And she is sitting there in this bare space by herself, getting ready to be attacked by Kylo's TIE fighter. They never show Kylo actually piloting the TIE fighter. We just go on the assumption that it's him. They just show the gloves on the actual steering wheel of the TIE fighter. And it comes into attack, and we get a Matrix-style scene of Rey doing a backflip towards this TIE fighter, which I'm going to assume no one's really brought up. Actually, a buddy of mine and I were talking about it the other day. Probably the big effect of the movie is I'm thinking she's going to slice that TIE fighter in half. Why she's there fighting that TIE fighter, whether it's her and Kylo getting together to train, or her and Kylo fighting, or not even being her and Kylo, that I have no idea of. We get Princess Leia's music played in the background for the next segment. Shows Rey and Leia hugging it out. I'm wondering how much Leia we're going to get in this movie, considering Carrie Fisher had passed away before the release of the previous film. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for and see what they do with that. We got Lando piloting the Millennium Falcon again with Chewie by his side, so that's kind of a good little throwback and kind of an exciting to see. I'm not quite sure where the story's going to go with that, but that we'll have to wait and see. We get a little bit of commentary over the top of the trailer by, I believe, Luke talking to Rey, saying that she embodies basically 1,000 years of Jedi history all inside of her. We get the words, every generation has a legend, which I'm assuming is referring to Rey once again, and her quest and her story. We get Kylo looks like throwing a fit on some planet somewhere, killing people. Looks like maybe possibly the Knights of Ren. Once again, not sure about that. So it looks like he's still on the bad beat, somewhere in this movie at least, but who knows? I have my, I think we all have our ideas that, where Kylo as a character is going to go, and I think a lot of people feel that her and Rey and Kylo, that is, are going to get together, not in a romantic sense, but in a sense of fighting side by side. And I think a lot of that is brought at the end when we hear Luke saying that no one is ever really gone, and then we get the Palpatine laugh at the end. So I think that was the one thing, at least for me, and I think many people, that we were all like, oh boy, like what, time to get excited for Star Wars again. I mean, The Last Jedi was kind of a bit disappointing and left, at least for me, an ending where I thought to myself, I'm not really sure how they're going to wrap out this trilogy in one more movie. It finishes in such a weird way. It just seems like so much more needs to be addressed that I wasn't sure how they were going to do it in one movie. I'm still not sure how they're going to do it in one movie. Kylo kills Snoke, and it's tough to even tell who the big villain is going to be in here. Is it going to be a Rey versus Kylo type of thing? Is it going to be Snoke somehow isn't dead? Or is it going to be, lo and behold, Palpatine hasn't been killed? Now, there were rumors about this, and I just didn't really think they were going to go this direction, but I'm kind of excited that they did, I think. We will see how it plays out. I also wonder how they're going to explain away Palpatine's death, if he's still alive, that is, if it's not just a Force ghost type of thing, or maybe one moment where they show him as a Force ghost and he has his little chuckle in there or his laugh. Maybe he's not even as prevalent in the film as we might think, but I got a feeling he's going to be. And that is going to be an interesting take, and really makes me believe that Kylo and Rey are going to join forces to ultimately try to defeat Palpatine, maybe even with the help of Hayden Christensen and Anakin's Force Ghost. Disney has definitely done a good job of reigniting the excitement for this. I think a lot of people were disappointed with The Last Jedi, and weren't really sure what to think of how good Episode 9 could potentially be. But now with Palpatine's return and that throwback to the original trilogy, I think people are going to get really interested in. A lot of people were going to go see this movie. I mean, I think they were going to go see this movie anyway, but I think now they're going to go in with a bit of a better attitude towards the movie, and maybe we'll get a better, more climactic finish to this trilogy than I think a lot of us thought we were going to get after The Last Jedi. It also begs the question of how long is this movie going to be, because Avengers Endgame is going to be over 3 hours, and this one leaves a lot to be done in order to wrap up the trilogy, in my opinion. So I'm wondering if they're going to go the whole 3-hour route to kind of finish this trilogy up, which would make sense because, Star Wars fans aren't going to complain if they're going to get 3 hours of Star Wars anyway. And I think to kind of get Palpatine back into the story, to get Lando back into the story, to get possibly a relationship between Kylo and Rey, you're going to need to take a little bit of time and to get that done. So I would be willing to bet we're going to get a longer than normal Star Wars movie in this installment. Nonetheless, I think Disney accomplished its mission and created a lot of excitement and buzz around this movie that was maybe not going to be there as much, because Star Wars always gets a buzz, but as much as people might have thought with how The Last Jedi was not well received. So let's turn our attention to the parks and talk a little bit about 50 tweaks for 50 years. And today I want to talk about Disney transportation. Now, I know they got the Skyline coming in, and that's definitely going to help with the flow of traffic, especially through the specific resorts and parks that they're geared towards. And this is probably most likely only a phase 1. But I want to talk about the buses for a moment. The buses, I feel, are a very inefficient way of transporting guests to the parks. Sure, they move the guests around the parks, and they get people to where they need to go at the end of the day. However, when you look at some of the elements that are incorporated in the system, they're just not very good. A lot of resorts now have screens telling you when the buses are going to arrive, and they almost never arrive when they say they're going to, which in itself is already infuriating. If it's 2:20 in the afternoon and it says the bus is going to be there at 2:25 and the bus arrives at 2:27 or 2:30, sure, that's not a big deal. Most people can live with that. But when they tell you the bus is going to arrive at 2:25 and then all of a sudden it's 2:35 and it still doesn't get there, and all of a sudden it's 2:45, then 2:55, and 3 o'clock, now your day is starting to get a little bit annoying, and you're on vacation and you have places to go, reservations to get to, fast passes to make. This can be a little bit frustrating. With modern day technology and GPS and apps and all those kind of things, there's no reason why the wait times and the arrival times on these buses cannot be accurate. I can understand it being off 30 seconds, 1 minute, maybe even 2 minutes, but when the bus is arriving onto property to come pick up people at the various stops, there's no reason why the app can't correspond with the GPS on the bus and get a very accurate reading on what time the bus is going to arrive to pick you up. And if the long drawn-out waits were to happen, say, once a trip, or once every other trip or something like that, I could see it being one of those things where you're like, well, this happens and sometimes things don't always work out. But this is a thing that has happened multiple times, sometimes more than once in a day. And it just can't happen that way. It's just too inefficient and too frustrating for a guest to have to wait. Maybe they're trying to get to a dinner reservation, like I said before, and your dinner reservation's in a half hour and you get everything kind of timed out perfectly, and then the bus just doesn't want to arrive. Even if you leave yourself a window, if you leave yourself a 45-minute window, sometimes it's still so inefficient and so inaccurate, you can't even make it then. I mean, it has to be something within reason. And now with the resort expanding and getting lands like Galaxy's Edge and things like that, you're going to have to get even more accurate with these transportation options, because people are going to have to be certain places at certain times even more accurately than ever before, especially with the crowds it's going to draw in. Disney's got to get on this and do it as soon as possible, and it is definitely one of my top tweaks before the 50th anniversary. Let's just hope Disney does their best to fix that situation. And like I said, with a Disney Skyline coming in, that will help as well. But the buses are still going to be a primary means of transportation and definitely have to be addressed. That's going to do it for this week's show. We are cutting out the overrated, underrated segment of the show. We feel like if we continue to do that too long, then we're just basically going to run out of things to overrate and underrate. So we're going to try different ideas going forward with the format, especially now that it looks like this is going to be more of a solo show every Monday, or I should say Tuesday, now that we've kind of had some scheduling conflicts, most likely a Tuesday show as well, and kind of keep other things open for the free format show that we're going to be doing on Fridays. So with that said, we're going to keep these podcasts fairly short. But keep an eye out on the channel. We got a bunch of things coming out. We're trying to get at least one video a week published, as well as tips and tricks types of videos and things like that, as well as at least 2 podcasts a week. So we had just released yesterday our top 5 Disney dock rides. So if you haven't checked that one out on the channel, definitely check that out. I'm sure a lot of you are going to disagree with me, as you usually do. But we threw a couple of surprises in there, and kind of anxious to see what people think about that. With that said, we're going to wrap up, but definitely feel free to hit me up on Twitter at the backside of W1, or email me at thebacksideofwater@icloud.com, or of course leave a comment below if you're watching us on YouTube. Anyway, that's going to do it for me today. I am Tim with QuickDisTakes, and have a magical rest of